Over to you.
Okay, I'm going to go first. My name is Wilf Behrman-Riddell. I have been an Eastbourne resident and landowner for over 30 years. I am personally affected by the SNA proposal. There are strong arguments against this proposal. Those arguments are based on policy, governance, ecology and the law, to name a few. Our petition, I think we've got over 1,300 people that have signed it, and it's increasing every day. So there are a lot of people that are increasing. This problem is not going away, and it's going to stay, unfortunately.
Okay. Before we get started, I'd like to ask everybody present here how happy they are with Hutt City Council imposing this proposal on landowners. Please raise your hand and say nay if you are against this proposal.
Nay. I had my entire life savings tied up in 2,000 square metres of commercial land with the boundary of the park. More recently, in the last 20 years, it's been a mixture of gorse, blackberry and regenerating native fauna. On that basis, I considered it not to be significant. However, officers replied to me that anything that is green and grows is significant.
It's in both councils and its constituent landowners' best interests that the SNAs are accurately identified before council proceeds to notify provisions that will have immediate legal effect in terms of restricting landowners' lawful use of their property. He concludes, and I've given you his report, that the methodology used by Wildlands, which is a desktop review, desktop delineation and remote roadside observation, is consistent with national guidance as part of an initial stage, a data gathering stage of assessment. It's insufficient for the accurate delineation of a site or for a full assessment of a site's significance.
I have for the last 25 years been a resource consultant, and I have been involved in the preparation of resource management plans with respect to marine reserves, fisheries and forests throughout the Pacific. And I'm a committed conservationist, and I believe in the preservation of native biodiversity through the efficient management of resources. When utilised responsibly and sustainably, I believe that the people who are best qualified to carry out such management are private property owners. I have a plan, and under this proposal, I will be told that my plan I'm not allowed to execute because the council or Wildfire or whatever they call themselves have a better plan than I do. I think that the forest that I have planned for my land will be forest worthy of protection, but I want to protect it. I don't want you people to protect it. I will protect it, and therefore I think it's for the benefit of the nation. But I just do not see any evidence that the state, with its jackbooted approach to this, has any better ability than I do to look after this. In fact, it seems to me you're powerless in the way you've handled it up to date.
In 2003, the Council of the day got a severe judicial bollocking in the Environment Court. The issue then was the same as today. 15 years later, it's the case, in the words of a famous American baseball coach, it's deja vu all over again. So in the interest of good governance, don't push this matter through today.
There's one point we want to raise today, and that is that the whenua, which you have mapped as a SNA, and in particular the pieces that fall within our boundaries, is whenua that we take responsibility for, not you. Our whenua holds our identity. The placenta of every child and every mokopuna of our family resides and nourishes our whenua. So when you sent us a letter offering to take responsibility of our whenua, we were bloody offended. How dare you treat us like that? So with that, your offer of responsibility has been noted. And we collectively have come here today to say thank you. but with respect, we decline your offer. Nā reira, e aku iti, e aku rahi, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou.
You see the numbers here and the depth of feeling. Each person here represents a vote at the upcoming elections. But this here is just the tip of an iceberg. We, all the voters in that iceberg, will remember your decision here today. You will feel it on election day.
I wanted to use a small section of that bush to run some sheep. Your guys over here just weren't interested. Right from the word go, it was cut it down or else we're not going to move it. Even after I did a very gentle cut down and just took out the gorse and the scrubby stuff, and I left a load of nice pungas and so forth, I just got mucked about. I knew this was going to go operative on Saturday. In fact, I think it goes operative today, so I've cut it down. Yeah, that's what happens. You didn't give me a choice, so I took action in my own hands. If you'd have come to me in the first place and said, you've got some nice bush on your land, what are your plans? What are you going to do with it? I'd have said, I want to clear a bit so that I can run a couple of sheep on it, and the rest I'm going to leave. I'm not going to do anything with it. Why didn't you just go, okay, let's move this SNA 20 metres, which is what I wanted, 20 metres further up my section, and you still would have had 7,500 square metres, the best part of an acre and a half of my land that I bought, that I paid for.
I'd like first, every one of you that's on this board, to put up your hand that lives on rural land. Isn't that interesting? Not one of you that are here today, round this table, live on rural land. To you people here, I'm just going to say two things that you can do.
So thank you, Mary. If you can just wrap up.
Yes, this is a wrap
long
up.
over time.
This is a wrap up, and I'm telling you what you need to do. Block your lands. Don't pay your rates. Wait until they make a difference.
We began clearing the land, leaving those trees. Those trees are still there today. We cleared our land of all the gorse, and right now all that is cleared is as much as I intend to clear, and the rest of it is in native bush. There's an awful lot of people here wanted to speak. We could cut this meeting dead short. One of you needs to make a motion to can this thing in the interim.
Wife and I have lived there 42 years. We've fenced, we've put gates in, we've made the land suitable for regrowth, and we've nursed it. Like most of the people around, visitors around here, will have done as private owners of their property.
So this is what my land looks like. You can see the boundary. Almost all of it's yellow. The bit that's not is my house. Every last little bit of vegetation on my land got hoovered up by a bit of a greedy algorithm based on two photographs, one from 1995 and one from now. In 1995 it was gorse. So two pictures equals native bush, save it. It's my garden, I planted those plants.
We have let 80% of the farm already revert back to native bush, and we are happy for this to be part of the SNA. But the other 20%, which are areas essential to us to use for making the property financially viable and can use for building on, is the main area which you have identified as SNAs. Now, our property has already got anything we do has to have resource consent. If you want to dig a hole in the ground, you've got to have resource consent. Now you're going to impose more restrictions on us. Is the purpose do you want to buy the farm? You're going to rule it. So, we've got a lot of kids. I've got two boys. Darcy's got two boys. You know, we want those boys to be brought up in the rural area, but if you're going to start telling us what we can and can't do in terms of tracks, houses, sheds, the whole lot, what's the point?
My suggestion is going to be that we close public comment, we have the officers come up. My current thinking is that we look at, and I've discussed this with the officers, that we look at delaying this for a couple of months so that we can have the opportunity to talk more to the community.
The actual views of myself and my wife are that the actions of just simply taking our private property by way of severe restriction is actually blatant theft, and that the natural bush which existed around us has hardly been touched, which I believe is very good evidence for there being no need for the SNA to affect our pieces of land in our neighbourhood. Now, I paid for this land, not the City Council, not another committee or something, and I do not want a committee or the City Council to tell me that I cannot use most of my land. That is just corrupt as far as I'm concerned.
To date, there has been no process on consultation with mana whenua. Therefore, this whole process up to date has not been properly run. It is flawed. Absolutely flawed. Under Te Tiriti o Waitangi, you are breaching your responsibilities as a council through this process by carrying on.
I work in Wellington. I'm bloody busy at work, pardon the language. I'm very busy at work. Very difficult for me to find time on a Monday to Friday, 9 or 5, to engage and have an ecological assessment done. I don't know what it means on my property values. I appreciate that's hard to estimate, but some analysis should have been done.
If a covenant is placed on a property, it will decrease the value of that property. The only question mark is by how much. In round figures, we're talking about $1 billion worth of property here. And I haven't seen any impact assessment, financial impact assessment, on $1 billion worth of assets.
This RMA, SMA business came in in 1991, correct? The subdivision occurred in 2001. You guys didn't do the job. You didn't do your job in 2001. You should have put something in place at that point, and you didn't.
The legal opinion obtained by the Council makes many points, including A, there is no distinction between public and private land. So why is Council ignoring exotics on public land and allowing them to contaminate nearby private land and doing it for decades? Changing the district plan or even registering SNAs on private titles does nothing to implement any practical management of SNA purposes and may be counterproductive. Blindly following any law that effectively expropriates private land without proper compensation is following bad law. Enhancement, I notice, is a term that has been used from the beginning of this process until the third update on the 9th of October. On the 23rd of November update, number 4, enhancement has been dropped and replaced with conservation. The goalposts have been shifted.
I see you councillors as having a vital input into this exercise. But for right or for wrong, the feeling has developed out there that basically you're here as a group of rubber stamps. Every decision is taken by staff, prosecutor, judge, jury, executioner, and you don't actually fulfil any role. And the majority of it was developed, I suppose, in the 60s by people they bred camellias. So just about all, 80% of our garden is camellias and rhodos and azaleas and dogwoods and maples and cherries. And we were just flabbergasted. We've had an SNA slapped on us. And so, what worries me is if your consultants can't distinguish from the process they are following the difference between a maple and a manuka, Well, how much confidence can we really have? It's not a very nice feeling to wake up in the morning and think, crikey, I'm being treated like a criminal. I mean, it's a big step to say, I'm going to take some property rights off you or infringe on your personal liberties. You know, that's pretty draconian. There has to be something fairly serious going on in order for that to happen.
We flood from valley to valley and we push the 100 sheep and cattle that we've got, our four-legged friends, our other family, up that hill and protect them. And the SNA is going to stop us from doing that. So who does the SPCA go to when all my stock drown? Because I don't want to clean them up. I don't want to be in jail. Because that's what you're doing. It's 272 pages that came out on Monday. Who read this? Who had the time to read this?
Prior to that, we'd had even bigger scrub fire, approximately 10 years before that. So that's the bottom picture. Okay, the only part of our land left intact was a small area of native bush at the very top. We've planted hundreds and hundreds of trees, native trees on our property, and it really concerns me that if we invite the council in, that SNA area will grow. The only other comment I've got is if we'd let that fire burn, I'd have no SNA on my property, and I don't want to see people lighting fires.
The question that concerned me was, we've heard a lot about biodiversity, but what concerns me is what came out in our rates. A Section 293 proposal, public notice, where it appears that the Hutt Council, while arguing with us over biodiversity, is quite prepared to relinquish biodiversity if your section is over 4,000 square metres. And what confuses me is that on one hand you're arguing that biodiversity doesn't matter if you've got a very large section and we're going to build houses on it, but on my section in Nikau Street, you're extremely concerned about my biodiversity.
If there's anybody hoping so that they can hear me down there, there is room up here now. If there's anybody downstairs who's on the speaking list who wants to come up, they're more than welcome to come up now.
And when I say it's nestled, it's 1,400 hectares of working farm. Now that 1,400 hectares is 80% covered with SNAs. When we bought the farm 16 years ago, it was very run down, and we have spent that 16 years bringing back the farmland so that we can run it as a business. We also run a tourism business on our farm, and if you are saying to us that we cannot put tracks through our native forest, then that is ridiculous. This is where we want to take people to show them the beauty of our farm.
I think delaying it and kicking this down the road is not really serving anything, and in fact it might encourage a lot of people to go and clear their properties in the 2 or 3 months that the consultation takes place.
Freehold land is the highest form of land ownership in New Zealand, and it has the highest user rights of any land in New Zealand. Overseas evidence suggests that a drop of at least 20% in value is achieved by registering an SNA on a property title. What should council do? Go right back to the beginning of this process. Put SNAs on their own land, which I believe is 49% of the Hutt Valley land, and ask private landowners to join a voluntary scheme. I've also got Shane Edwards, who's a real farmer from Wainui, rang me tonight and asked me to convey his thoughts to you people. He has got a working farm. He's working on his farm tonight and he can't make it. His message is that he's been really working hard to clean up the environment. Over the last 3 years, he's put in place 8.6 kilometres of fencing to protect waterways and to protect areas deemed to be significant areas on this farm. The water quality is improved on the farm And the council, mind you, he's really quite upset that the council has not acknowledged this work. It is very expensive what he's done.
There have been incidences of landowners becoming very unwell. Is this not a health and safety issue of your ratepayers?
This is the reason all of our yellow toner is gone from our printer is because 85% of our section is in SNA. That they don't quite know what's happening. And that at the moment the process seems to be that we have to proactively contact and deal with the council. Also, the only proactive part of it is that it proactively discourages us from keeping bush. That's why we bought 20,000 square metres of land and not in the subdivision below us a 350 or even 1,000 square metre section. But we're being asked to keep that bush and not be able to use any of it because, of course, we only get to keep our house and our driveway. That we're being asked to keep that to cater for the fact that even while we built our house, we watched bulldozers in the subdivision below bulldozing bush.
Once you've put that into being, all the consultation on the earth, you've still put that line in the sand that those SNAs were put there. And I just don't know how you can make a huge decision on data that is so fundamentally flawed, and that was said by legal people, and that you might jeopardise the ratepayers of this area.
I have a 100 hectare property on the Coast Road, which is approximately 90% covered with SNAs. I, like most other property owners, spend a lot of time, money and effort preserving our native bush. In the Wildlands report, it stated that Hutt City Council only wanted private land to be included in the SNA mapping and not public land. It wasn't until Wildlands convinced the Hutt City Council officers that the mapping wouldn't make sense. Hutt City Council then changed their mind and included public land as well. That does make me question the motive of the council officers. All the research that I have read shows that the carrot approach creates better long-term results and future buy-in than the stick approach. Hutt City Council has a real opportunity here to show they are willing to work with the community and challenge the right to try a voluntary type system with workshops, incentives and concentrating on the higher value or specific areas. Thanks.
So you're happy with that? Okay, no, that's great. So with that in mind, so I'm going to move the recommendations as outlined. If I could have a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Cousins. So I'll now open it up for debate. That officers be instructed to amend the proposed plan change to give effect to this resolution and that be reported back to full council as soon as practicable.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The point that we wanted to make is that if you have a voluntary approach, you don't need a plan change. So our suggestion is just do away with any resolution to have a plan change. You're effectively not having a plan change. If that's your decision, that's your decision, but you don't need a resolution that deals with it. You also don't need site visits, so you don't need to deal with those either. I'm just repeating, I don't see the approach you're taking being a district planning approach.
Thank you. Well, we've got a mover and a seconder. No, in which case I will put the motion. All those in favour raise their right hand.
Those in favour, Councillors Milne, Lewis, Edwards, Briggs, Barry.
Those against?
Those against, Councillors Cousin and Chair Bryson.
Okay, thank you. So I declare that carried. So thank you. I'll now close the district plan meeting and I invite you to stay for the council meeting, which will begin shortly.
We'll begin now. Thank you, Lisa. What I'm going to be proposing is not what has come from the district plan committee, so it's really important that you do stay. There was the question of why we were to hold the council meeting immediately after the district plan, and that was because, clearly, of the distress that has been caused in this community. Any delay to the further 2 weeks, the council meeting, I believed in consultation with the Chief Executive that that was not warranted. I'm going to read the recommendations as Mayor that I am putting forward, that we note the recommendations of the District Plan Committee, or the recommendations of the District Plan Committee be noted. Firstly, 1, acknowledges the distress this issue has caused in the community and unreservedly apologises for that. That 2, Council acknowledges the majority of the significant natural areas, SNAs, have been well maintained by landowners in Lower Hutt City. 5, introduces a plan to protect and enhance all SNAs on publicly owned land. 6, requires officers to work with private landowners who wish to further enhance SNAs on their land or for further information with professional advice and guidance. 7, establishes a fund and criteria to assist landowners who wish to further protect and enhance SNAs on their property. Firstly, this council acknowledges the distress this issue has caused in the community and unreservedly apologises for that. So this is a voluntary process that I am proposing, and as the officers have said, it's not as part of a change in the district plan. That will give us the opportunity as a community to heal, because there does need to be some healing.
If you look at the numbers over the area of the public land, and then you're just tiny little bits around the edge of private land. So we should ask that question. What's the special value that extra bit adds? And if it adds one, let's have that conversation about how to make sure that it lives up to its purpose in the future. That's not the same as we just need to hoover up all the bits that we can see look like bush and have been there for 23 years.
The protection of SNAs on public land has not been good to date, and there's been a lot of concern about that. So what I'm asking is to introduce a plan to protect that. That doesn't necessarily have to be a change to the district plan. I want to see improvements, and certainly as we go through, then with the discussions with our community, in partnership with our community, I see us working together with the private owners. Just to tell you that the building automatically alarms itself at midnight, so we might see some, so if it comes to midnight, don't move because the sensors will be triggered. Councillor Milne.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I would have been more than happy to look at using some sort of SNA process to enhance the protection of biodiversity in the city, if I had thought for 1 minute that A, we needed it, and B, it would work. And the proposal we had before us failed on both accounts and simply produced a huge amount of pain and anxiety for residents. And for me, it failed the common sense test. And I don't believe that if the law says you must jump off a cliff, that you must therefore jump off a cliff.
And I know that in the District Plan Committee there was a division, and it's not easy, but I do hope that all of you, seeing these recommendations, what I'm trying to achieve as Mayor. Councillors, it's been moved and seconded. I intend to put the recommendation by division. All those in favour, please raise their right hand. Thank you, Chief Executive.
Those in favour, Councillors Milne, Lewis, Edwards, Lurlich, McDonald, Sutton, Barrett, Bassett, Reeds, Barry, and the Mayor.
And those against, please. And would you like your abstentions recorded, colleagues? Okay, that's right. I declare that carried. Ladies and gentlemen, can I thank you all for being here. This has been an extraordinary night. I wish you safe travels home. I'll now declare the meeting closed.